All right, let's jump right into this one. On the surface, it looks like a pretty simple story. An old woman dies peacefully in her sleep. But once you start to peel back the layers, oh boy, you find a house just overflowing with secrets, resentment, and a crime that might have been the perfect murder. So that's the big question we're asking today. Was this a natural death, or was it something much, much darker? And this is it. This is the letter that kicks the whole thing off. It's this desperate, urgent message sent to the famous investigator Lord Peter Wimsey. The writer is absolutely convinced that a terrible crime has been committed, and somehow everyone else has just accepted it as perfectly normal.
So let's meet our victim. This is Lady Augusta Doddington. She's 82 years old, the matriarch of this place called Halfpenny House. Now, the official story couldn't be simpler. She died in her sleep. The cause? Heart failure. For a woman her age with a known heart condition, it all makes sense. The doctor signed the certificate, the family moved on, and that really should have been the end of it. But it wasn't.
And here's where you can see that official stories start to fall apart, and fast. On the one hand, you've got the clean, simple version everyone's been told. But then, look at the other side. You've got these weird little details that just don't add up. The guy who inherits everything, Marcus, he's not celebrating, he looks terrified. Her bedroom window, which was supposedly always latched shut, is found open. And of course, there's that letter begging for an investigation. These aren't just little quirks, they're the first signs that something is seriously wrong.
Okay, and this is why that open window is such a massive deal. Halfpenny House has this design flaw, you could call it. It's an 18-inch wide ledge that runs right along the outside of the second floor. It's narrow, for sure, but it's just wide enough for someone to creep along, directly to Lady Doddington's window. All of a sudden, an open window isn't just a minor detail, it's a wide-open invitation for a killer.
Right, so if you're going to have a murder, you need a murderer. And it turns out, Halfpenny House is practically bursting at the seams with people who had pretty good reasons to want Lady Doddington out of the picture.
And would you look at this cast of characters? It's a classic setup. First, you've got Marcus, the nephew. One day he's totally dependent on his aunt, the next day he inherits everything. Then there's Sylvia, her companion, who didn't even try to hide the fact that she couldn't stand her. We've also got Jeffrey, the quiet secretary who seems harmless but is definitely hiding something. And finally, James, the cousin who sent the letter. But what's his real angle here? Every single one of them is caught in this web of money and resentment.
And here's the bombshell. This is what lights the fuse. Just a few days before she died, Lady Doddington was heard saying exactly this. She had found out something, and she was planning to change her will to cut out the deceivers. For every single person in that house, this was a ticking time bomb. Their financial future was about to go up in smoke, giving them a very powerful motive to act fast before she could call her lawyer. So, we have a house full of motives. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what actually happened on the night she died. We're going to park this psychology for a minute and look at the cold, hard facts, the timeline, and the physical evidence. Look at how tight this timeline is. It's incredibly suspicious. At 9 o'clock, the maid leaves. The room is locked up tight. But then, just an hour and a half later, at 10:30, someone sees a mysterious figure out on that ledge. And then only 30 minutes after that, our secretary, Jeffrey Crane, admits he was on the very same ledge and claims he found her already dead. So the whole case hinges on what happened in that 90-minute window. And then we get our first piece of actual physical evidence. A single brass button. Just sitting there, caught in a crack on the ledge right outside her window. Somebody was definitely out there, and they left a part of themselves behind. And boom, just like that, the button is a perfect match for one that's missing from Jeffrey Crane's blazer. The quiet, timid secretary with no obvious motive is now physically placed at the scene of the crime, on the murder weapon, you could say, the ledge. For any detective, this looks like case closed, right? But it's not even close. Because this is where the whole story just completely flips on its head. We've been thinking this crime is about inheritance, something that happened just a few days ago. Well, it turns out the real motive, the real story, started half a century in the past. This isn't just about money. This is about revenge.
Okay, so get this. The secret goes all the way back to a governess named Ellen Crane. A young Augusta Doddington became obsessed with her. When Ellen rejected her and tried to leave, there was a struggle, and a fire started. Augusta got out, but she just stood there and watched Ellen Crane burn to death, and then covered it up for 50 years. Our victim, Lady Doddington, suddenly looks a lot more like the villain of a much, much older crime.
So who figured all this out? Jeffrey Crane. Turns out he's Ellen Crane's grandson.
He found Augusta's hidden confession, and he confronted her, not by shouting, but by slipping this terrifyingly simple note into her prayer book. See, this wasn't about money for him. This was about justice for his grandmother.
So Jeffrey comes clean. He admits it all. Yes, the button is his. Yes, he was on the ledge that night to confront her. But he swears that when he got to the window and looked in, she was already dead. And what's more, he says he saw someone else, another figure, on that same ledge an hour before he got there. So is he a killer, desperately trying to save his own skin? Or is he telling the truth, a man who just stumbled onto a murder scene?
And that's where we are. Instead of getting a neat answer, we've just opened up a whole new set of questions. The easy solution is gone, and the real puzzle is, honestly, way more complicated than when we started.
I mean, this is the big one, right? If you believe Jeffrey's story, then who was that first person on the ledge? Who got to Augusta first? Was it Marcus, the heir? Sylvia, the companion? Who else had the guts to make that climb?
And you have to wonder, how was this even done? There were no marks on the body, no signs of a fight. It looks so peaceful. Which brings you back to that glass of milk she had at 9 o'clock. What if a slow-acting poison that just mimics a heart attack was slipped in her drink? If that's what happened, the killer never had to go near that ledge. The whole thing could have just been a distraction.
And just when you think it can't get any more complicated, it does. We find out that 2 days before she died, before Jeffrey even left his note, Augusta got another angry letter. A different one. One that made her genuinely fear for her life. So who else was threatening her? It's like her past wasn't just catching up to her, it was coming at her from all directions. So in the end, we're left with a murder where the victim might have been a monster herself, the main suspect might be totally innocent, and at least 3 other people had the motive to do it. It all leads to this final nagging question. For a place like Halfpenny House, a place that was built on a foundation of lies, is digging up the truth really about justice, or is it just another way to destroy everything?